Stop waiting to feel ready. Welcome to Focus and Fairway, a channel built to help golfers finally play closer to their real level on the course, because many golfers already have more technique than they manage to use consistently during a round. And in golf, as in life, the challenge is not avoiding interference, is knowing what to do when it appears. Now, before we start, just a quick note. Yes, throughout these sessions I will occasionally mention the tools and programs we created around this work. The first is called See the Shot, because everybody tells golfers to visualize, to breathe, to stay calm, but few people explain how to actually use those tools properly, according, of course, to the kind of golfer you are and the kind of interference you experience on the course. And the second program we have is the Mental Golf Accelerator. That program is really about helping golfers build their own process, not copying someone else's routine, but create a personal system that protects their technique from the things that usually distracts them during a round. You identify where your game normally starts drifting, and we help guide you step by step to build a more repeatable way back to focus. Alright, now let's get into today's session, and don't forget, the most important thing in mental golf is not copying another golfer. It is understanding yourself. The subject of the day is confidence. There is a moment in golf that almost every player knows. You stand over the ball, you know the shot, you have trained technique, you have seen yourself hit it before, but something still asks, am I ready? And that question can become so dangerous, because sometimes golfers wait for confidence as if confidence is going to arrive politely. Tap them on the shoulder and say, go on my friend, now you may swing. Golf is not usually that generous. Most of the time, confidence does not arrive first. Commitment does. And that is where many players get stuck. They think, I need to feel confident before I hit the shot. But often the truth is different. You do not always need more confidence before the shot. You need something reliable to follow. That is a huge difference, because if you wait to feel ready, you may wait too long, and golf does not reward endless waiting. It gets awkward, especially when the group behind is already starting, very motivational. And now let's be clear. Confidence matters. Of course, it matters. A confident player moves differently, decides differently, recovers differently, everything is different, but confidence is not magic. It is not a mood you hope for, and it is not something you can force by sharing. Be confident. Wonderful sentence, almost never enough, because confidence in golf is often a consequence of preparation, a consequence of clarity, a consequence of having a sequence that tells your mind, you know what you are doing now. And that is what many golfers are missing. Not desire, not technique, not effort. They are missing a reliable way to enter the shot without asking the moment for permission to happen, because the moment can be very unreliable, and one day it gives you sunshine and good rhythm, the next day it gives your mind wind, bunkers, bad lays, and a playing partner who says just relax. Dangerous words, never helpful. And yet this is exactly where confidence is tested. Not when everything feels easy, but when the shot starts asking for commitment, when the tee shot is narrow, when the putt matters, when someone is watching, when the last hole was ugly, when your mind starts saying, maybe not this club, maybe not this line, maybe this is where it all goes wrong, and suddenly the shot has too many voices around it. That is not confidence. That is a committee meeting. And golf played by committees is rarely elegant. So, the question becomes, how do you stop waiting for confidence and start building it? That is the really turning point. Because in golf as in life, the challenge is not avoiding interference, is knowing what to do when it happens. Confidence is not the absence of interference. Confidence is knowing how to move through it without letting it take over the shot. And that changes everything. Now, the original mistake many golfers make is thinking confidence is a feeling. Sometimes it is. But if your game depends only on feeling confident, your game becomes fragile. Because feelings change, the weather changes, the score changes, your group changes, your body changes, your last shot changes. And if confidence depends on all of that being perfect, good luck with that. That is a demanding contract. Golf will not sign it. So confidence needs a stronger foundation, a sequence, a cue, a decision. A way to commit even when the feeling is not perfect. That is where real golf begins. Not waiting until the mind is fully convinced, but giving the mind something clear enough to follow. This is why the best players do not rely only on motivation. They rely on structure. They have ways to enter the shot, ways to restart, ways to commit, ways to protect decision from noise, and that is not because they are cold or robotic. Quite the opposite. It is because they want freedom. They use for that a good structure that gives the swing room to happen. A good sequence protects the shot, and a good process gives confidence somewhere to grow. Because confidence without structure is unstable. It may appear for one hole and vanish on the next, like a guest who leaves without saying goodbye, okay? But confidence built through process becomes more available. Not perfect, but more available. And in golf, more available is already very powerful. Now, let's look at the free moves here. Not has full routines, not has a whole system, but has the direction confidence needs. Okay, so move on. Stop hiding behind endless preparation. This is the first one. Some golfers hide before the shot. Not obviously, not dramatically, but they hide inside preparation. One more look, one more rehearsal, one more swinging thought, one more check, one more reason not to commit yet, and it feels responsible, it feels careful, it feels intelligent, but sometimes it is just doubt wearing a smart jacket. At some point, the shot needs commitment. That does not mean rush. It does not mean careless. It means once the decision is made, you stop reopening the case, like if you were in the courtroom. Because if every shot becomes a courtroom, your swing becomes the defendant, and it rarely wins. The first move in confidence is this: stop using preparation to delay commitment. Okay? Preparation should lead to action, not replace it. And it is especially important for the never quite ready type golfer, okay? The player who keeps waiting for the perfect feeling, the perfect setup, the perfect signal. But golf rarely gives perfect signals. It gives enough, and enough has to become enough. That is a skill. And when you build a sequence that tells you what enough looks like, you stop asking the moment for permission. You know when to go. That is confidence. Not loud, not dramatic, clean. Now, move 2. Remove what does not belong to the shot. The second move is simple, not easy, but simple. Before the shot, your attention can become crowded. The last mistake, the score, the group, the water, the bunker, whatever. The person who is very kindly watching in silence, which somehow makes it worse, of course. The future, the result, the story you will tell yourself if it goes badly. Too much. No wonder the swing changes. The mind is trying to play golf. Predict the future. Protect the ego is normal. Impress the group. And avoid shame. No one wants to look silly in front of the group. All before impact. That is a lot for one small white ball. So confidence requires subtraction. You remove what does not belong to the shot. Not from life, from execution. The shot does not need your whole biography. It needs a clear decision, a clear cue, a clear commitment. And again, this is where technique gets protected, because technique needs space. If attention is full of noise, technique does not get a fair chance to appear. So the second move is not be positive, it is clear the field. Return to what matters. Let the stroke deal with the stroke. Very practical, very, very, very powerful. And this is where many players begin to feel relief, because they realize confidence is not about becoming fearless. It is about becoming less crowded. And I love that. Less crowded. The mind has fewer things shouting. The body has fewer mixed instructions. The shot has a clear path. That is confidence starting to form. Now move 3. Take back the decision before the shot. This is the deepest move, because when confidence drops, decision often gets stolen by doubt, by memory, by comparison, by the group, by the last bad shot, by the desire to avoid embarrassment, and suddenly you are no longer choosing, you are reacting. And reacting does not feel like confidence, it feels like survival. So the third move is take back the decision. Not aggressively, not with fake bravery, but through your sequence, your cue, your commitment, your routine, your process. This is important, because real confidence is not shouting, I can do this. Sometimes that helps. Often it sounds like a motivational poster having a crisis, okay? Real confidence may be much quieter. It may sound like, I know my decision, I know my cue, I know my sequence, I know what I am returning to. That is much stronger, because it is usable. And usable confidence is better than dramatic confidence. The golf course is not impressed by drama. It is barely impressed by anything, actually. And that is part of the problem. And part of the charm as well. Now, when you begin taking back the decision, small things change. You stand over the ball differently. You spend less time negotiating with the ball or wherever. You recover faster from doubt. You stop needing the shot to feel perfect before you take the shot, and your technique starts appearing more often. not because technique suddenly changed overnight, but because the conditions around it improved. That is the point. Technique matters enormously, but confidence helps technique show up. And confidence is not separate from process. It grows from process. Now, this is where I want to make a careful distinction. Confidence is not arrogance. It is not pretending. It is not saying, I never doubt. Every golfer doubts. Some just have better ways of not handing the shot over to doubt. That is why I don't like shallow confidence advice. Like, believe in yourself. Well, fine, but how? When? Before it's shot? With what cue? What to do when belief is not available? That is practical work, because if confidence it's only a phase, it collapses under real golf. But if confidence is built into the way you prepare, decide, enter, and execute, then it becomes much more stable. And that is what we are building here. A way to make confidence less dependent on mood, less dependent on the last shot, less dependent on approval, less dependent on perfect conditions. Because if your confidence only works when golf is easier, it is not golf confidence, it is comfort. Different thing. Golf confidence must survive discomfort. A little uncertainty, a little wind, a bad lie, a little group silence, a little free foot putt that suddenly looks like a legal document. That is where it counts. And the funny thing is, when you stop waiting to feel ready, you often begin to feel more ready. Because readiness grows from action, not endless inspection. That is why a clear sequence matters. It moves you from inspection to commitment, from hesitation to execution, from am I ready to I know what I'm doing next. That is the identity shift. You stop being the player who waits for confidence to appear, and you start become the player who creates the conditions for confidence. And that player is very dangerous. That player wins tournaments in a very polite golf way, because that player can miss a shot and still continue. That player can feel doubt and still commit. That player can stand on the tee without asking the group for invisible approval. That player, that can be you, can stop giving the moment too much power. This is just golf. And that is where golf starts feeling different. More stable, more mature, more yours. Now, let's connect this to the 4 golfer types. The rush type often mistakes speed for confidence. They act quickly because waiting feels uncomfortable, but real confidence may require a better pause. The overthinking type golfer often mistakes analysis for confidence. They want certainty before action, but real confidence may require few thoughts, not more, and they don't understand that. The loose type golfer often assumes confidence will naturally be there. Well, but when focus drifts, the game becomes too open. They may need more structure. The never quite ready type golfer waits for the perfect internal signal. But confidence may begin when they trust the sequence before the feelings arrives. Different players, different routes back. This is why copying someone else's routine often fails, because golf and because golfers do not lose focus in the same way. So confidence cannot be built in exactly the same way for everyone. That matters. Please think about this a lot. And that is why the construction of your system matters. Not just having a routine, the routine must be designed around how the player tends to lose execution. That is where it becomes useful. Otherwise, it can become decoration. Golf theater, a little waggle, a little look, a little prayer, and then the same reaction. We need better than that. A good process does not decorate the shot. It changes the way you enter it. It gives your mind a job. It is a job, a useful job, not a job of pretending disaster, not a job of measuring your word, not a job of replaying the last hole. The job of returning to the cue, returning to the decision, returning to the shot. That is confidence in motion. And when that begins to happen, the promise becomes very real. You stop needing to feel ready. You start having something reliable to follow. You stop asking the moment for permission. You start trusting the sequence. You stop letting doubt on the decision. And you start giving your technique a clear chance to shine your glory shots. That is the transformation. And it can be trained not by copying a champion's routine, not by pretending to be calm, not by forcing yourself to be positive, but by building the right process around your game, your tendencies, your interferences, your way of losing focus, your way back. That is the real work. And it is worth it because the reward is not only better shots, it is a better relationship with the round, with the golf itself. You do not feel so hostage to the last mistake. You do not feel so dependent on perfect conditions. You do not feel like confidence is something that may or may not arrive. You have a way to build it. And in golf, as in life, sometimes that is the real turning point. Not becoming fearless, becoming prepared, not waiting to feel strong, having something to stand on. And if today showed you what starts changing when confidence is built through a process instead of waiting for, that is exactly why we created Mental Golf Accelerator. Because Mental Golf Accelerator is not about giving you a generic routine. It is about building the process that fits how your game actually reacts on the course. So that when the shot starts to matter, you do not have to wait for confidence to arrive. You have something to follow. And when you have something to follow, your technique finally gets more of the space it deserves. Because you trained so much, you deserve to make your best, your peak performance, okay? That is the promise. Not perfect confidence, but reliable return to focus, which brings confidence. And that may be the one of the strongest form of confidence a golfer can build. And if you are still here, I want to thank you and ask you to like this content to receive more guidance, because in golf, as in life, recognizing what usually happens and have an anticipated plan to use it in your favor is halfway to success. Thank you and see you next time.